Hello, so welcome back. So we are in the last video, last module for week 5. So we will continue our discussion on plastic pollution, health and environmental impact, which we were discussing in the earlier video as well. So looking at where we left exactly in the previous video, we were looking at this particular slide, if you remember, where we were looking at the presence of microplastics in the bottled water. So this particular study was done taking water bottle from several countries. As you can see, the flags of several countries are presented here. The countries that was tested, and several brands starting from Nestle, Bisleri, which is more common in India. We also like Aquafina. We have Aquafina. Sometimes we see Dasani also in Indian market too. So Aquafina. And some of the Indian brands and many of the international brands, and they were all tested for microplastics. So now what is this microplastics? This is actually tiny pieces of plastic which you usually cannot see with naked eye, but when you look at under microscope, you identify them. So in terms of the bottles, there were 325 numbers of plastic particles for every liter of water sold, and this was for many brands, many countries, sample taken from 9 countries, and plastic discovered were polypropylene, nylon and polyethylene terephthalates. So and this was done by ORB Media, that organization which did that. So as you can see, we are seeing contamination of plastic in our bottled water from almost all major brands that you find in the world. Similarly, we also found plastic in salts. So many of these salt particles, many of these salt brands was tested very recently. One of the study also came out from IIT Bombay. I think few months back, which you can you can Google it and you will be able to find it. So there the plastics are showing up, microplastics are showing up in the salt, and we need salt for pretty much every meal we consume. We do put salt in there. So there are issues of microplastic exposure to humans through water, through salt, through like different in the fish and some other sources. So even air, people are looking at microplastics in air. So that is also another concern that we have in terms of these plastics showing up. So this is where we left in the previous video. So and then there are issues of uncontrolled plastic burning. So whenever there is a burning of plastic, it increases because there is a dioxin, furans, all sorts of nasty organic chemicals getting released. So in terms of health impact, it increases risk of heart disease. So you have heart disease, increases the risk of heart disease, exacerbate respiratory ailments such as asthma and emphysema, cause skin rashes, nausea, headache, damage the nervous system, kidneys and liver, disrupt reproductive endocrine development systems. In particular, burning polystyrene and styrofoam cups and plates and food trays releases stearin gas, which disrupts the central nervous system. So as you can see, that's why we say open burning of garbage. And these days, as you know, 12% of our municipal solid waste is essentially plastics. So when we do open burning of garbage, we are burning plastics there. These are styrofoams, cups, that white color plates that use and throw ones, which you use it. You go to any these days any like eateries, they give you those kind of plates because it's cheap and it's light as well, so it's easy to transport, it's cheap, it's light, and you can use it and throw it. So it's being used in many places, and when it ends up in the waste disposal site, whether it's a known, whether it's burning intentional or burning accidental. In both the cases it releases, because burning is burning, doesn't matter whether it's intentional or on purpose, or either on purpose or through by accident. It does lead to a lot of air pollutants, which causes all these different issues associated with our body, and of course to the other species as well, which gets exposed to these chemicals. So that's one issue in terms of the uncontrolled burning. Dioxins, which we talked about quite a bit, even in those of you who may have taken the solid waste, in the solid waste sphere also we talk about dioxins and furans from open burning of garbage. And open burning of waste is considered the number one source of dioxins and furans today. And one of the reasons for dioxins and furans is because of the presence of plastics. So the most dangerous, and these dioxins and furans are potential carcinogens. They cause cancer, and these are at very low concentration. It's harmful. So as stated here, what the most dangerous emission can be caused by burning plastic containing organochloro based substances. So whenever the chlorine is there and organics are there, it's like PVC. When such plastics are burned, the harmful quantities of dioxins, a group of highly toxic chemicals, are emitted. So dioxins are most toxic to human organisms. They are carcinogenic and hormone disruptors and persistent. So they don't degrade very easily, and they accumulate in our body fat. So they are lipophilic as well. So it goes from mother to babies through placenta. So it goes from the mother to the baby. So it affects small babies too. Dioxins can also settle on crops and in our waterways, where they eventually end up in our food, accumulate in our body and passed on to our children. So that's why dioxin is a big deal in terms of emissions, especially from waste burning facility. Most of the engineered or modern waste to energy plants have a system in place to remove these dioxins, to bring the dioxins concentration way below of what is the regulatory limits are. But whenever we go for open burning, as you can see in this picture over here, and you see these kind of scenarios in many cities around the world, many cities in India. As you go around in India, you see that people just like they will do some street sweepings, which will have all sorts of potato chips packet, biscuit wrappers packets, some plastic bags, and they will torch it. Because the volume actually goes down, and they feel like that's what they're supposed to do, because they are not really aware of the danger associated with that. I myself, when I was like doing some work for Bihar government on looking at the waste management plants, like reviewing the waste management plants, so did some site visits, and in one of the sites I found that municipal workers were actually burning all those styrofoams, plastics and other stuff, and when we asked them that why you are doing it, the answer was, this is too bulky. It's when to transport it, it's because it takes too much space on the truck, and then we cannot put other garbage on there. So we just burn them, and then they disappear, because it's all gets only around 10 to 20% remains as ash, rest just volatile, it goes into the atmosphere. But they were not aware that the fumes, and they were just sitting around it. So the fumes that they are inhaling because of the burning of these gas, this styrofoam, polystyrene and other stuff, is actually going to cause a lot of health effect to them. So they were not aware of it. So it's also that the capacity building, the knowledge transfer is to our workers who are working in the field, who are handling this garbage. They should be aware that burning these stuff, especially something containing plastic, burning them is totally no, because it creates a lot of human health impact. And since many of these workers, they are not aware, they just burn it because that's what it has been done in the past. Earlier, say 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, there was no plastic in the garbage. So, burning of those garbages still created problem in terms of particulate matter, shoots and other stuff, but at least since the plastic was not there, so organochloro based substances were not there, these dioxins and furans and other issues were not that common. But now, since plastic ends up everywhere, and that is the reason why we need a robust plastic waste management program within the municipal solid waste program of every city, every ULBs, every town, and also in the rural areas, because plastics are showing up in the rural areas too. So, this is so dioxin is a big deal in terms of so you should not burn plastic. That is a totally no. You should not burn plastic in open. Plastic can be used as an energy source, but which we will talk about in the next week, that plastic can be used as an energy source, but it should be done in a controlled environment with proper air pollution control system, not just burning it in an open atmosphere. So, next we will talk about the effect of the chemicals, chemical impact and some of the ecotoxicological issue. So, plastic is hydrophobic. Now, what is hydrophobic? We talked, if you remember, there is something called hydrophilic and there is something called hydrophobic. Hydrophilic means affinity. So, if something has affinity for water, it is hydrophilic, and if something has affinity for water, usually it tends to dissolve in water because it will get into the solution with water. If a material is hydrophobic, that means it has the phobia for water. Phobia means that does not like water, it is afraid of water. If something is hydrophobic, it does not dissolve in water. So, that is hydrophobic will not dissolve, hydrophilic will dissolve. So, hydrophobic plastic is hydrophobic. So, since it is hydrophobic, it has affinity for various hydrophobic contaminants. The contaminants, especially big molecular organic compounds, which is they are hydrophobic in nature. So, they are, and these are taken up from surrounding water and accumulates on the plastic debris. The mechanism gets greater attention for micro debris and microplastics because they are easily ingested by microorganisms. So, you have microplastics which the high molecular organic compounds which were contaminants of different nature is sitting on top of microplastics. Now, this microplastics gets consumed by organisms, and that gives you a pathway for these contaminants to enter into those organisms. So, plastic debris in the marine environment, that is why the plastic debris in the marine environment, they contains possible contaminants like the additive chemicals and hydrophobic chemicals which comes absorbed from the surrounding water. Since they absorb on those plastic surfaces, and then when any species is consuming this tiny microplastic, they are also getting these chemicals into their body, and which can accumulate in the body and go up the food chain. So, that is how it becomes a problem in terms of chemical impact. Plastic waste also promotes breeding places for mosquitoes. It's you go to many big cities today and look at the big drains, you will see lot of floating plastic there, and that becomes a good breeding ground for mosquitoes. I was in Mumbai recently in that Mulund Thane, that Cheknaka area. There is a big drain which it seems to be there was a kind of a big nala and with a culvert on top of that, which we just crossed over to come from Mulund to Thane area, and there I could see that very similar picture of what you are seeing here. There was huge plastic floating onto the surface. And as you may know that Bombay does have a lot of issues of malaria and all that, a lot of mosquitoes issues are there. So, if these kind of scenarios exist in any city, that creates a additional breeding ground for our plastic right there. So for the mosquitoes. So, this becomes like a breeding ground for mosquitoes, where it finds a house and then mosquitoes will breed there. So, it is a this picture is from Hospet but there are you will find these kind of pictures everywhere in the country, where if many big cities. So, and there are reports as well where plastic waste helps dengue mosquitoes to breed, says Tamil Nadu Health Secretary. So, addressing a media on Salem on like a Tamil Nadu Health Secretary say, our request to general public is that the mosquito breeds in good water. So, people should understand the cycle of mosquito, that it can breed in blue drums, syntax tanks in house. It can also breed in plastic bags on empty land, also stagnated water on the terrace. The mosquitoes could breed in stagnated water behind fridge or ACs or tires. So, they are trying to remove breeding mosquitoes in these places, and for treatment asking to follow WHO guideline. So, one important point he made was that people to dispose plastics currently, they end up in empty plots. This leads to mosquito breeding. What is freely available now is plastics, and the health secretary has addressed this problem. In ditches and any other place there is a disposed plastic, clean water will collect in it, and this will breed mosquitoes, said Piyush. So, plastics floating on water, even on clean water, becomes actually a better breeding ground for dengue mosquitoes, because dengue mosquito, as you know, they breed on clean water. So, that is why in coolers, in ACs, behind fridge, or wherever you can find a clean water, stagnant clean water, that is where dengue mosquitoes breed. Now, plastic in coming up on the surface water around different areas of the city is becoming another source of breeding places for these type of mosquitoes. And then it drains, chokes, drains in canals, as you can see. It becomes, and this is I am just putting some pictures there. You will find similar pictures in your city as you go around, and you can take lots of pictures of these and even put it on discussion forum if you find some interesting photograph, and you can put for all of us to see. So, as you can see that this drain is totally clogged. You can hardly see water there. Only a small patch of water is visible in this particular area. Otherwise, most of it is just covered with floating garbage, and most of these garbage is plastic. Which is there, because plastic, since it does not biodegrade and it does not dissolve in water, and it does not even say if a paper, it will get soggy, and once it will interact with water, it will get heavier than water, and then it will try to go down towards the sediments, towards the bottom of the water body. Plastic, it is lighter, it always stays, most of it is lighter. So, and especially the thin plastic, single use plastics, most of them are very light, and that is why they just float and creates a nuisance and covers the entire the water body. So, that becomes a problem in terms of like a clogging of drains and canals. There was this is just one like a report from Dhaka, from our neighbor. It's again, this is just one example. You will find similar examples in many of cities in our country as well. They say that with discarded plastic bags choked the Bangladesh capital's canal. When the canals that was once providing natural drainage has been encroached upon. Now, the plastic is trapped in pipes, drains, especially in densely populated Dhaka and second largest city of Chittagong, and this plastic waste has caused the sewerage system to break down repeatedly. Dhaka is the world's most crowded city. For several decades, water logging during the monsoon has been a common. Now, the streets gets waterlogged just a few minutes of rainfall, and water cannot pass through the clogged pipes, and mainly by plastic bags. And this is a report from Dhaka, but you can relate it to your own city as well, based on whichever city you come from. You see that this kind of water clogging, water floating, whether in Gurgaon or whether even in Haj Khas in Delhi, I have seen that. It's many cities you see that once it rains, it clogs, clogged stormwater system cannot handle it. So, its water gets flooded, and you have flooding, and water does not, it takes a lot of time for water to recede. So, now plastic bags, a mismanagement of plastic waste is creating adding another dimension to it, because all these drains are getting choked with plastic bags. So it's becoming has been it's waterlogging and clogging of the sewerage system. Those things are becoming problem in terms of plastic waste mismanagement. So another reason to have a good management of plastic waste. Now there is whenever this kind of effect happens, you have economic loss as well, because if you have environmental pollutants are there, and there is economic loss of use of environment for tourists and other economic purpose. So if you have water clogging and all that, you have loss of tourist days, damage to local tourist infrastructure, because and then if you have loss of tourist days, if there is no tourist people are coming, then hotels are empty. So if restaurants are empty, bathing resorts and other amenities, nobody is using them. So you have loss of income for hotels, restaurants, bathing resorts and other amenities, damage to tourist dependent activities, loss of income for clothing, manufacture, food industry, general commerce, etc., damage to fisheries activities, reduction in fish catch, depreciation of the price of seafood. So you see that reduction in fish catch as well, damage to fisheries dependent activities like fishing equipment, fishery products, fishing equipment sales, damage to the image of the coasts as a recreational resort to both national and international level. So whenever you have environmental impact from in terms of say if your beaches are totally polluted by this plastic pollution, and if you have a lot of plastic waste along the beach, which we see at many beaches around the world, some beach cleanup days are also being event. One of the biggest one was done in India, in Mumbai, which again keeps on happening from time to time, because those beaches, we are getting a lot of waste coming into those beaches which needs to be cleaned. But whenever you have these kind of mismanagement of waste, it's not that there are a lot of direct and indirect impact. Direct impact is, of course, you can see that it doesn't it looks bad, it's creating a nuisance, it is choking the drains, so becoming problem for stormwater runoff. Indirect impact is with the mosquito breeding, more mosquitoes, more people getting sick. If it becomes too filthy, you have loss in tourism. Loss in tourism means impact on several industries like the hotel industry, restaurant industries, car industries, taxis. So the many cities which depend on tourism, they do not really afford to have mismanagement of waste in that particular city, otherwise that really impacts them very hard. So that's the reason, like some countries, like I've seen personally in like for example in New Zealand, since tourism is one of their major focus, they try to keep their country as clean as possible. So you go to New Zealand, you find it a lot of cleaning initiative. They try to keep the entire country as clean as possible so that it's welcoming to the tourists, because tourism is one of the major source of revenue for New Zealand as a country. So that's why they take it very seriously. So it's again those things come in picture, economics kind of rules. So some examples here: Bali declares rubbish emergency as rising tide of plastic buries the beaches. So Bali, as we know, it's one of the famous destination for international tourists for surfing, snorkeling, sunbathing in its perfect beaches. But now the island has declared a garbage emergency after the country's most popular tourist beaches were inundated with a rising tide of plastic waste. So 33.6 mile stretch of beach on the island's western coast was declared an emergency zone after authorities realized that volume of plastic being washed up was endangering the tourist trade. So that's and the US surfing champion warned after a visit in 2012 that pollution on the island was getting so bad that it could make the surfing there impossible. So that they did get the warning upfront many years ago, but now they will essentially have to go for cleanup, because the whole economy of that area kind of develops on the tourism. So it's if you don't manage your waste properly, you have impact on other areas. So managing waste is very important. So if you look at kind of little bit of like we talked about waste impact, and so put it in a little bit of historical perspective and try to look at the cost. What is the cost of this plastic pollution? So, it's a, of course, there is a human health cost, the environmental impact cost, but we took it putting all those things together. If you look at the history of plastic and then totally cost associated with that, in 1950s, when around the time when plastic we started getting used to plastic, we had 1.5 million tons produced, and 55 years after that, by 2015, that number increased to 300 million tons. So, 1.5 multiplied by 200. So, in 55 years, or probably 50 plus 15, 65 years, sorry, in 65 years, the increase was 200 times. And it was during the period, most of this between 1950 and 2015, say up to 1990s, it was mostly dominated by Europeans and Americans, those countries. Now, after 1990s, the 2000s, 2010s, these developing countries, the emerging economies with a huge population, with a bigger middle class are also catching up. So, with them into the picture, so we have now 300 million tons of produced in 2015, but as these countries are becoming dominating into the sphere, we are seeing it will go up much higher to 33 billion tons. So, we will have 33 billion tons of plastic that is produced. So, this is the plastic produced, not the plastic waste produced, but the plastic produced. And if you look at the mismanagement, since we don't have the data for the old part, but from 2010, 32 million tons of mismanaged plastic. So, 32 million tons of more than say around 10% if we take this number as a benchmark. So, 32 million tons of mismanaged plastic, 4.8 to 12.7 million tons of plastic waste, that is like a plastic waste showing up, and 100 to 250 million tons of missed plastic is expected in 2025. So, if you look at the cost associated with that, cost of marine litter is $8 billion, and that is the cost which will be in the form of cost of fisheries, aquaculture, marine tourism, as well as for cleanup. So, if you do not manage the plastic waste properly, you are looking at cost, even it is just a part of the cost actually, because it is just the marine litter part, $8 billion. That is a lot of money. If we do, all of us kind of manage the plastic waste that we produce properly, we can save this money and can be used for many better things that the planet needs, the different countries need. So, they are looking at 622 million annual loss to tourism, 81.7 million European Union fishing fleet annual losses. So, this is UN Environment, UNEP has come up with this data just to raise awareness on the issues related to the plastic waste. So, being on that note, if you look at just kind of, that was kind of a summary to show you that if we do not manage plastic properly, plastic waste properly, this is what we are getting into, a lot of revenue loss, human health loss, environmental impact, and this microplastics showing up in different sphere. So, in summary for this particular week, if you look at, we are looking at substantial quantity of plastic is getting into natural environment, that we kind of looked into. If it gets into the body, plastic has potential to transfer toxic substance to the food chain. There are chemicals associated with plastic which are harmful to wildlife, to humans. Phthalates and bisphenol A, they affect reproduction in all animal groups and impair development in amphibians and crustaceans. So, overall what we are looking at in this particular week, we have tried to show you the environmental impact, what is the human health impact, what are the causes, have a what we call kind of a risk assessment overview of plastic and plastic waste. So, with that we cover the week 5 of this particular course. So, we will move to week 6 in the next video. So far I hope that you are enjoying the course, and keep the discussion forum active. As I keep on saying that we are trying to respond back to you within 24 hours most of the time. So that's, and anything new you find, put it on the discussion forum so that we can discuss in detail. Thank you.